Welcome back everyone, Maximillian Senpai is here with another Monster Hunter's Journal video, where I read stories about my dear friend, Yuri Milkshake, and his friends, on their many encounters with different monster girls. Now without further delay, let's get into the video. Monster type, wolf/beastman, gender, female and males. Yuri's note, usually found in the desert region, bossing around hordes of mummy monster boys and girls, while protecting the sleeping pharaoh. The one in question, which this entry is focused around, is a lifelong friend of my father's, and doesn't have a pharaoh that she protects. A friend of my father's had come to visit me, just to check up on how I was doing. The friend was an Anubis named B, who was staying in a spare room in the house. I approached the room with something for her to eat. When I noticed the door was opened slightly, B was in there. I smiled slightly, softly pushing the door open and entering. Big mistake. B was sitting at her desk, watching some sexy videos on her laptop while, I blushed slightly. Some drool was running down the side of B's mouth. At first she didn't notice me, then she froze, feeling the presence of someone in her room. B looked over her shoulder at me, stopping. "Yuri," B said. "What the hell? Get out." I quickly apologized to B, leaving the room, as B continued on. I closed the door, leaving the plate on the ground outside of her room, before quickly walking away, trying to get my mind off what I'd just seen. That afternoon, AJ and I had come back from doing the shopping. Once the shopping was put away, thanks to help from Jesse and Millie, I went to check on B. This time I knocked on the door, but I didn't get an answer. Slowly opening the door, I saw that B wasn't in her room. Strange. I searched around the house for her, before asking Lennon where she had gone. "I think she's at the Mermaid Lake, boss," Lennon said. "Thanks," I said. "Oh, boss, before you go," Lennon said. "Yeah," I replied. You didn't tell me about what happened with Millie," Lennon said. I would rather not talk about it," I said. "Why not? Was it that bad?" Lennon asked. Before I could have a flashback about it, I quickly left the house. I made my way to the Mermaid Lake to see that B was sitting there, her feet in the water. A few mermaids were watching B from afar, not daring to get any closer to her. I sighed softly before walking up to B and tapping her on the shoulder. B looked over her shoulder at me, gritting her teeth and standing up when she saw me. B looked ready to hit me, but I dropped to my knees and began apologizing to her. B blushed slightly, quickly looking away from me. I slowly looked up at B, noticing her blush, which made me smile. "I guess I could forgive you," B said, "but only if you do something for me." "Of course," I said, "anything." B smiled down at me. "Sit," B said. I sat down. B smiled and laid down, resting her head in my lap, with a soft smile on her face. "B," I said. "Pat me," she replied. I placed my hand on B's head and began slowly patting and rubbing her head, which B seemed to enjoy. B's ears were twitching, which caught my attention. My cousin, Nico, had tried touching B's ears before, when she first arrived, and that didn't end well for him. I really wanted to touch them, because they just looked really adorable. While still rubbing her head, I moved my other hand towards B's left ear slowly. So far so good. I swallowed and softly began rubbing B's ear. All B did was smile. B was letting me rub her ear. I smiled. I kept rubbing B's left ear, while my other hand started rubbing her right one. B blushed slightly, but before I could get a good rhythm going, B slowly sat up. "Give me a paw massage," B said. "A paw massage, huh?" I said. "Yeah, sure, sounds good." B placed her paws in my lap. I softly began massaging them, which caused a lovely smile to cross B's face. "How are you so good at this, Yuri?" B said. "When I last met you, you were only just beginning to train as a monster hunter." I smiled. "I trained under a Hakutaku," I said. "She taught me lots of things, including how to get the best foot rubs. Miss Hakutaku loved feet, even though she herself had hooves." B laid her head back, enjoying it, before I changed paws. Once I finished with the paw rubbing, B sat up properly, locking eyes with me as she smiled, before hugging me tightly. I smiled and hugged her back. Later. "Oh, this one's good, boss," Lennon said. "You really think so?" I asked. "Yes," Lennon said. "Feet are amazing." I smiled, rubbing the top of Lennon's head with my index finger. Lennon smiled, before giggling and looking at me. "Now, boss, Tell me about Millie, Lennon said. The journal needs that entry. Thanks for watching, Perv Army. If you liked the video, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Don't feel like you have to though, only if you really enjoyed the content. Thanks again for watching, and Maximillian Senpai will see you next time. Goodbye.